"You've already put your signature down, so just take the car and stay quiet." The salesman declared it boldly, his voice cutting through the air in front of the gathered audience. Emily, 33, stayed in her seat. No flinching, no backing down. A mere gaze and an absence of sound. In the exhibition room, a man in jeans and a baseball cap lingered behind her, subtle yet perceptive. No one had any idea who he was, not even Emily. However, as the salesman attempted to intensify his pressure, the man gradually stepped forward. He removed the cap. The atmosphere shifted. "You've just erred in trading your essence for a mere commission," he stated with a composed demeanor. He held the position of CEO. "Express your agreement if you think that integrity should be the top priority in any enterprise. If you enjoyed this, please give it a thumbs up and drop a comment with a 1 for more stories like this. Alternatively, you can choose 2 if you'd like to explore another option." Emily Carter stood out among the crowd of customers. She walked into the car dealership with a stride that spoke volumes, a blend of resolve and unspoken discontent. "I have an appointment to pick up my car," she said with a polite tone. As she perused the bill, a frown creased her forehead. The fees mentioned here were not included in the original contract. Derek Collins, the salesman, reclined slightly, shrugged his shoulders, and replied with a sly grin. "The embrace of reality awaits you," a phrase as familiar as a door that creaks shut over time. Yet Emily remained in the room. And not coincidentally. What Derek did not suspect was that Benjamin Hayes, the boss himself, was lurking just 10 meters away. Disguised, dressed in denim and a faded baseball cap. He pretended to be waiting for his own ride, yet his gaze was intensely focused on the discussion unfolding before him. An experienced hare like him could sense when something was amiss. Emily failed to identify him at first glance, yet Benjamin was quick to recognize her. An individual who previously held a position and consistently approached her responsibilities with a strong sense of ethics. And now she stood there like someone who possessed an unsettling depth of understanding. That was precisely the issue, or perhaps the answer. "I simply want to grasp why I should be charged for something I never requested," Emily stated, her voice steadier than the turmoil within her. Derek exaggeratedly rolled his eyes. "If you didn't want to, you ought to have paid closer attention to what you agreed to," a phrase that resonated through the corridor. Benjamin remained still. Not at this moment. Sometimes the most valuable lessons come from watching how individuals navigate the complexities of power when they think no one is observing. In that moment, it dawned on me that I was not solitary. I needed to be with someone who truly comprehended me, like a judge crafting his decision. That was not part of the agreement. Derek shook his head, offering a disingenuous smile. "That is typical for us. It seems that may have slipped your mind. A single deception glistening like treacherous black ice." Emily sensed an unsettling presence in the air. "I prefer not to sign that. That has yet to be settled." Derek inclined his head, slightly softening his tone. "Well, Emily, this is something we engage in daily. The majority of customers tend to refrain from asking questions, and there it lay, the true essence. Not merely an error, but an entire framework. Coercion rather than guidance. Deception rather than openness. It would be in your best interest to sign," he said, his tone carrying an air that felt more like a warning than a suggestion. In that instant, the course of everything shifted dramatically. Outside, Benjamin stood before the glass window, calm yet watchful in demeanor. Benjamin was well aware of this strategy. Previously, such a thing would have been unimaginable in his home. Yet now he perceived it in stark contrast. Agreements that were never desired, yet were artfully acknowledged. Emily stood out as well. She was merely the first to inquire loudly, "What's going wrong here?" As Derek went on with his words, Benjamin remained utterly still. He was curious to explore the depths of the game and to discover the lengths to which Emily would venture. Benjamin lingered in the space, blending in seamlessly with the other patrons. With hands tucked into his pockets, he gazed at the prospectus, his thoughts cascading like an unstoppable avalanche. He recalled the days when each buyer was welcomed with a handshake and contracts were thoughtfully explained rather than hastily processed. He had indeed caught wind of some whispers, customer grievances, untraceable messages. Even those who once worked there had issued warnings. Yet nothing could have equipped him for the sight that had just unfolded before his eyes. Upon seeing Emily, memories flooded back to him, her precision, her sense of responsibility. She was never one to seek out conflict, and yet she found herself there now, face to face with a system that had evolved gradually. He had the opportunity to step in right away. He had the option to pull Derek aside, address the issue directly, and resolve it with a single statement. Yet Benjamin understood that true leadership required a great deal of patience, the craft of not just addressing issues, but also uncovering their origins. He chose to stay quiet, watching closely as minor discrepancies evolved into a significant reality. That was not an isolated incident. That represented a shift in culture. What about Emily? She transcended the role of a mere attentive customer. She served as the ultimate gauge for all that had gone awry within his organization. Derek had stretched himself too far out of the window. "You've already signed, so just take the car," he grumbled, slamming the key down on the table for emphasis. Silence enveloped the room. It wasn't the noise that bothered me, but rather the arrogance conveyed in that sentence. As though the customer were merely a bothersome obligation, Emily cast her gaze upon him. Incredible, a moment where countless individuals might opt to withdraw, yet there were footsteps echoing in the silence. Gradually, resolutely. Benjamin emerged from the darkness, removed his cap and spoke softly yet with a piercing clarity, declaring that the conversation had reached its end. Every gaze was fixed upon him. Derek stepped back as though an unseen force had yanked him away from the ground beneath him. "Mr. Hayes, what brings you here?" Benjamin silenced him completely. "The essence of what you have accomplished is the true inquiry. Agreements created, clients coerced, extra expenses imposed, which are neither lawful nor moral." The saleswoman at table 3 remained silent. The leader of the workshop positioned themselves in the entrance. It felt as though the lights had gone out in the midst of the ordinary flow of existence. In an instant, it dawned on everyone just how deep the shadows had grown. And in this shadowy realm, Benjamin pressed on, his voice resonating for all to hear. "Your services are no longer required, without delay, and not due to an error on your part, but because you believed no one would notice. However, the true surge came afterward." Benjamin glanced over at his colleagues. "Derek isn't the issue. The issue lies with those who observed, yet chose to remain silent." A thunderous sound echoed throughout the space. Silence prevails, more of an internal conflict. How many had departed? How frequently was that the explanation? That's just how it goes. In that instant, it became evident that this was not merely a mistake, but rather a system that had insidiously corrupted itself from within. Thus the true test commenced, holding on while tidying up. The following morning, the workshop was filled with a palpable atmosphere that seemed almost tangible. Much like the aftermath of a tempest, there's an undeniable sense that everything has shifted, never to return to its former state. Benjamin had provided explicit guidance. All contracts from the past 90 days need to be reviewed, one line at a time. We reclaim our trust. Yet this time, he conveyed it in an email that felt less like a command and more like a call to attention. Out of the blue, there appeared employees who typically barely crossed paths, side by side leaning over the lists, engaged in a dialogue about contracts and exchanged insights. Gradually, in a manner so subtle it could easily be overlooked, something started to take shape. Accountability. Genuine, self-imposed accountability. During this stage, Benjamin reached out to a familiar face from the past. Linda Thompson, 58, previously led the customer service department, a woman with more strength than a sturdy filing system. "I need you back," he said over the phone. "What did she say? What time should I arrive?" "There are no inquiries." "Without a doubt." As she stepped into the reception, a hint of the familiar corporate culture washed over her once more. Precision, kindness, structure. Her initial move came swiftly, a transparent barrier separating the sales area from the finance office. "If we have nothing to hide, we don't need doors that can be closed," she remarked, her smile conveying a shared understanding among all present. The transformation extended beyond mere walls. It was an entire atmosphere. Out of the blue, sellers began discussing the importance of ethical conduct among themselves. Clients were met with sincere apologies during calls, transforming complaints into conversations rather than just a means of justification. Benjamin took in the scene with a silent gaze. No acknowledgement, no spectacle. For him, the journey was extensive, starting not with grand actions, but with minor choices and individuals who had the courage to trust in the positive aspects of the system once more. However, a shift, regardless of its simplicity, frequently revealed itself not at the forefront, but in the most unexpected places. Amidst the quaking and the attempts to shift, one individual, unfamiliar with the limelight, managed to shine brightly. Ethan Moore, at the age of 22, serves as a parking attendant, exhibiting a level of courtesy that surpasses that of certain sales managers. He was the one who warmly welcomed Emily upon her arrival, offered her water, and ensured that she didn't have any issues in the customer parking lot. Benjamin had witnessed that. Without rules or pressure, only essence remains, and that is precisely what is required at this moment. Ethan held a plain letter in his hand. Assistance for the novice salesperson. Not a grand celebration, yet a significant milestone. Linda embraced this gesture and expanded upon it, bringing a new educational program to fruition. Ethics, communication, managing criticism, topics that were never part of the original agenda. Consider a tangible illustration. The narrative of Emily, lacking a name, yet rich in details. We don't learn from high-profile brochures, but from real mistakes, Linda emphasized. Ethan emerged as the quiet emblem of this transformation, imperfect yet eager to grow, approachable and sincere, the type of individual that appeals to customers for purchases. And in the quiet moments, one pondered what the world might look like if everyone shared Ethan's essence. It was an unassuming wooden frame, entirely ordinary, simple and understated, and yet all who stepped into the car dealership remained standing. A fresh sign stood prominently beside the front door. It stated, "We approach each customer as though they are purchasing their very first vehicle. With grace, perseverance, and sincerity, absolutely no tricks involved. No exaggerated assertion. A message was conveyed unambiguous, clear and straightforward, and Benjamin emphasized that it was not merely read, but truly comprehended. If you don't want to be a part of this place, then perhaps it's time to reconsider your position," he stated during the following employee meeting. Then silence enveloped the space. This time not from fear, but from a place of respect. An elderly regular patron, Mr. Meissner, 74, ever the epitome of correctness and skepticism, one morning found himself before the sign, reading it aloud. He then turned to the recipient and declared, "If you truly mean it, then I'm right here." This sentence brought a smile to Linda's face. That's precisely why she murmured more to herself than to anyone else. Colleagues started to recognize one another's cues whenever someone spoke in a hushed tone. Words and integrity transformed into something deeper than a mere promise. It transformed into a filter, because suddenly some no longer belonged, while others, like Ethan, thrived in it. A new kind of pride began to emerge quietly, not the kind that displays trophies or boasts about sales figures, but the one that originates from within, the one that proclaims, "We shall approach it in a new and improved way." Benjamin, having taken it upon himself to mount the shield, understood that this was far from the conclusion. It marked the start of something new, and in the distance, as if from another realm, the next moment was quietly setting the stage. A scenario where the fresh commitment would face its trial. Several weeks had gone by since Emily stepped into the car dealership once more. This marks the initial maintenance period. There are no creases on the brow, no skepticism in the gaze, merely a smile. Thoughtful yet authentic, she anticipated a typical exchange, casual conversation, exchanging keys, the routine. Instead, Ethan stood before her, dressed in a shirt and jacket, clearly transformed in his new role. "Welcome back, Emily," he said, his voice brimming with pride and genuine joy. Her lips curved into a smile. "Have you risen yet?" "Some doors opened quietly," he replied, a hint of confusion in his expression. yet his eyes sparkled with intrigue. The two engaged in casual conversation about the car, the service, and life itself. No concealed sales tactics, no rush. It felt like a dialogue between familiar friends. As she stood there waiting for her car, Emily suddenly remarked, "You know, the last time I felt compelled to talk to a wall." Ethan gave a slight nod. "Today this wall is composed of glass, quite literally." She gazed at the newly erected partition wall and chuckled softly. In this fleeting instant, all at once, everything mirrored what Benjamin had tirelessly struggled for over the years. Confidence established not through mere talk, but through actions. Benjamin lingered in the distance, nearly undetectable yet undeniably there. He observed the unfolding scene in silence. Without intervention there is no presence, just a subtle nod for himself. For that was precisely what he had always desired. A company that operates not through control, but through mindset. This moment, no matter how insignificant it seemed, conveyed more than any quarterly report ever could, and somewhere in his gaze resided the understanding, now it truly begins. It was commonly thought that leadership needed to be something bold. Proclamations, resolutions, power. Yet Benjamin realized that the genuine essence of a company reveals itself not during meetings or through slogans, but in those instances when no one is observing. When a young employee like Ethan engages with a customer purely to listen, without any intention of making a sale. When a customer like Emily bravely seeks clarity despite the odds stacked against her, or when a leader remains in the shadows despite having every justification to take center stage. Respect is not merely a decoration on the wall, it is a deed that goes unrecognized. Emily, Ethan, and Benjamin, 3 individuals, 3 generations, 3 positions, and yet bound together by an unseen force, respect, a concept frequently mocked, due to its lack of quantifiability, and yet it serves as the foundation for all that is present. Benjamin frequently pondered the inquiry, what endures when no one observes? The solution has become more evident than ever before. What they had cultivated in this car dealership was not merely a system, but a mindset. And that holds more power than any regulation, for the reason that it exists. Within the subtle, within the serene, within the authentic. At times, just one fleeting moment can reveal the profound strength found in decency, courage, and the essence of being human. The tale of Emily, Ethan, and Benjamin is far from a singular occurrence. It reflects the choices we make, moment by moment. Perhaps you have encountered a situation like this, whether as a customer, an employee, or even in a leadership role. Then you understand the challenge of finding your voice amidst the quiet of others. However, that is precisely where the distinction exists. If this narrative resonates with you, or if you believe that more individuals should embody such actions, then let us create a shared example together. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share your insights in the comments, and remember to subscribe to the channel for more content. This approach ensures you won't overlook any narratives that both captivate and inspire contemplation. If you're curious about what truly matters behind the curtain of a company, be sure to catch the next video. It's available in the description and also right here in the video card above. This might just be the viewpoint you require at this moment.